Hello YouTube, it's that time where usually there's a monthly wrap up, and this time I have one. I actually read like 12 or 13 books. I literally just counted this minutes ago, but I've already forgotten. So I actually have a good number of books to talk about. So without further ado, here are the books I read in October. First up, I listened off of Scribd to Murder Your Employer, McMaster's Guide to Homicide by Rupert Holmes. I very much enjoyed this. I found it funny. I found it, in a sense, inspiring. I don't know that inspiring is the right word, because that might lead you to think that I'm encouraging homicide, and I'm not. But it was very interesting to read. I loved the plot. I loved the story. I loved the characters. Plot and story are kind of the same thing, but anyways. And I do have a full review up on my blog right now, so you can go check it out there. I also read 2 books that I got via NetGalley from the publisher in exchange for a review. The first one I'm going to talk about is Pack Dragon by Ava Richardson. This book unfortunately did not wow me whatsoever. I was enchanted by the title. It's got dragon right in it, so there's got to be dragons in the book. There are dragons in the book. They're helping the military move riders around and move items, equipment around, and battling depending on the size of the dragon. If the dragon is big enough, it's a battle dragon. There wasn't a whole lot of fighting in this one. I think it's part of a larger series. I don't know how large the series is though. I was not impressed whatsoever. I gave this one a 3. I was roughly interested in it. It was entertaining enough. There wasn't really anything bad per se about it. It was kind of like every other book that you read, and so I couldn't see giving it anything better than a 3. The other book I received via NetGalley was Little Red Shadow by S.C. Grayson. I enjoyed this one. I think if I recall I gave it 4 stars or 4.5. I know I was going back and forth on that for a bit. It's a Red Riding Hood retelling. It is very loose on the retelling though. There's a group of, well, it's really a gang, and they call themselves the Wolves, and that's the big bad wolf. Or I think it's supposed to help represent the big bad wolf. I think the leader of the group is actually more the big bad wolf. In Little Red, the main character that is supposed to represent Little Red Riding Hood, the only clue that you have that she's Little Red Riding Hood is from the summary. You know that it's a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, and eventually she does wear a red cloak. That is the connection. Putting aside how very loosely this is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, knowing that if you're looking for Little Red Riding Hood or something very close to Little Red Riding Hood, this is not it. But I wasn't per se looking for something that was exactly Little Red Riding Hood, and so I enjoyed the book. I liked the story. There's a little bit of magic in the book where certain individuals have a certain special ability, and our main character in this book can basically meld into the shadows or control shadows and make them physical. There are a few funny parts where you will chuckle. There's a little bit of a romance, just the right amount. There's no real big, like, kissy face. Okay, nope, I take that back. There's not a whole lot of kissy face. I think there was, like, once, maybe twice, where things get a little hot, but that was it. So if, like, romance is okay as the secondary plot for you, like, this is it. I very much enjoyed the story. The main character, I forgot, her name is Scarlet, so there is a tie-in with Red, because Red is Scarlet. But she is trying to protect a friend and gets tied up in gang doings, which she was already tied up in gang doings. She used to be part of the upper class. Things happened where it was illegal to have these powers, and so people like her were hunted, and her parents were found out and hanged. And knowing that it's genetic, people kind of did look at her kind of sideways, not wanting to risk her friend and their family. She ran to the ghetto and joined a gang to be protected from the inquiries. And from there, she kind of learns to be street smart. Not kind of, she does. She learns to be street smart. She's very good at solving problems and thinking fairly quick on her feet to get herself and friends out of these problems. The next several books, if you watched my November TBR last week, this is around where that certain kind of mood kicks in. And I read a lot of what would be classified as self-help books, but like a business self-help standpoint. So, and honestly, I cannot separate these books. They're all kind of blending together at this point. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to talk about them as 6 separate books. There were 3 that are, I believe, part of some kind of series by this author, Dory Clark. They are Entrepreneurial You, The Long Game, and Reinventing You. I found all of them, I vaguely remember, helpful and inspiring. I remember listening to the audiobooks. These are all on Scribd also, and they were all audiobooks, which is probably how I read so many books in the month of October. I remember listening to the books and the author would be describing things, or like in, I want to say it was The Long Game or Entrepreneurial You. I can't remember which. They're interviewing other people and talking about how they became successful and some of the things that they did, and off of that sparks an idea. And I would try and think of, like, is that something I would want to do? Is that something I can make happen? What are the steps? And so it was helpful in the sense of, like, sparking creativity and giving encouragement that yes, there are success stories out there and maybe you can do it too. And then the other 3 were Refuse to Be Done, How to Write and Rewrite a Novel in 3 Drafts by Matt Bell. How How to Make a Living with Your Writing, technically the 3rd edition, by Joanna Penn. I hope I'm reading my writing right. And then How to Write Your First Novel by M.L. Ron. So now we're getting into kind of the writing, and I thought that these would kind of help inspire me for NaNoWriMo, and they kind of did. I'm very excited to be writing in NaNoWriMo, and technically I'm filming in this on the 2nd day of NaNoWriMo, and I am also simultaneously freaking out about the number of words that I have to write and trying to do all this other stuff as well. Whereas last year I kind of put YouTube and my blog to the side. I completely dropped those and just focused on writing words. This year I'm trying to keep everything going. Not only that, we're revising, so if I delete words, those are words that I have to make up. Kind of. I did heart breathings on YouTube, I think also kind of counts words that way, where if she's revising during Nano, if the chapter is 100 words, I know it's probably gonna be more than that, is 100 words, you delete 50, you're out 50 words. If it's 100 and you end up by the end of your session at 150, that's plus 50 words. The last book, without getting too sidetracked, getting back to the books I read, the last book I finished was One Dark Window by Rachel Gilling, and I'm actually laughing about this. I think I was meant to read this in October. I had it on a note, post-it, as a book that I wanted to pick up and check out, and simultaneously while I was out and about or in another room or something and scrolling through Google Play books to see what was out there that I might be interested in, I came across this book and I purchased it, and then I was laughing because I came back here and I saw my note and I'm like, oh, I must have really been meant to read this book, because I also wrote it down as one that I wanted to check out. Anyways, it was a very good book. I have already purchased the second book of the, I think it's just a duology. If I remember from when I looked it up. I don't know if it's staying a duology though, because I think the second book just came out like last month or something. The second book did just come out last month on October 17th, so I don't know if it's going to stay a duology or become like a trilogy. I can see it becoming a trilogy, but at the same time I can also see it staying a duology. But anyways, I did not put this on my November TBR because at the time that I made the November TBR, I had only started this book. But if I can, the second book will, heck, I may even just jump into the second book and have that be the first book that I read in November, because the first one was that good. So there's magic essentially running amok. This goddess, I guess, created something called the mists that are now attacking people because they're not, the people are no longer worshiping this goddess, and a king of many hundreds of years ago went to the goddess and traded pieces of himself to make cards of something or other, but made some cards, and these cards contain power. This is like the only acceptable magic. The holder can like tap it 3 times to initiate the magic and then tap it to turn it off. And I found that a little interesting, although I feel like I've read something along those lines before. But now they're trying to bring these cards of providence. That's what they were. They're trying to bring these cards of providence together to end the mist and the blight and children getting sick. And the children getting sick are becoming magic users themselves. They technically don't need protection from the mists in the forests, but carry around charms anyways to make sure that they're not found out. But you need these charms to kind of protect yourself from the mist. Otherwise, you essentially go crazy and you will remain in the forest, is my understanding of how the mist attacks. But so the king is trying to maintain his rule and bring the cards together to end magic. But we also have our characters that are within the royal family somewhat, which is interesting. So we have some treason being done. And I'm saying a lot. So we have some treason being done, and it's very like nail-bitey. There were several parts where you almost expect them to be found out, and gosh, it comes so close. And I don't want to spoil things, but there's some good writing in here, some well thought out scenes. And so I really want more of this, and I believe I will be giving this like 5 stars maybe. I was hooked. I did not want to stop this audiobook for anything. I had to because adulting, but I did not want it to stop. I did not want this to end, and I was very upset when the book was over. And there's a little bit of romance. I'm not sure how much I can say about the romance without spoiling things. Let's just say the captain of the guard is falling in love with our main character, and our main character in return is falling in love with the captain. But something happens, and I really need to know how things are going to work out between these two, if they're actually going to be able to get together. That is all I will say on that. So I better find out in the next book or I'm going to be mad. But I have a feeling if this is going to be a trilogy that we're gonna have to wait for the 3rd book. Lastly, I have 3 books that are in progress. I have another writing type book. I might actually DNF this book. I'm not getting a whole lot out of it, having read so many other writing books. It's kind of like all the others. That one is Read on Writing by Patricia C. Reed. Haha, Read on Writing, because it's her last name. But I don't think it's even so much of things melding together in my head, but even like while I'm reading it, like I was reading it at the dentist office waiting for a dental appointment now a few weeks ago, and there was nothing standing out in the book. So I was pretty much reading it just to occupy myself at that point, and I didn't have anything else downloaded on my phone. I am also reading Witch You Well by Colleen Cross, which is a somewhat nice, witchy, cozy mystery, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. I'm only 3 chapters into it, I think. I'm not that far. I literally just managed to start it. I was trying to read it before Halloween so that it would be my Halloween book review up on my blog. It didn't happen. I am also reading Actions and Goals, the secret story structure, the story structure secret, I'm getting that mixed up, by Marshall Dotson. And this covers the 6-act story structure, which for some reason is working better in my head and has helped me entirely plot out my book. So I'm not really going back through the book. I'm still technically reading it for the first time, but there's snippets out on the web. But so now I'm reading the book to understand a little better what all is supposed to go into the six act structure, and it's very interesting the way that Marshall Dotson has interpreted the breakdown of some existing stories. And I don't know that I would have thought of breaking it down in this way, but yeah, it is eye-opening. So those are the books that I read in October, and 3 that I am rolling over, well, 2 definitely, maybe a 3rd, rolling over into November. What are some books that you read in October? Any 5 stars out there? Any? I'm interested. I'm interested in recommendations. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next week with a new video. TTFN!